Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is episode 2 time of season 2 of the Pog State. And for this episode, we got a bunch of new stuff for you guys to enjoy. The first one is going to be the Pog Moment. That one is, of course, with our good friend, the Valdanalist. And he's going to be taking you through all of the coolest things that have happened in the first couple of weeks of the LCK, and we're going to be analyzing the heck out of them. We, of course, don't have an analyst desk for the global broadcast. That is all taken care of by the Korean side of things, and so we're going to utilize the Pog State in order to bring you guys all of that juicy analysis. After that, we of course have the Pog Lab. This is a new one. This is very exciting. I'm really excited about this one because Jeesun Khesun. Jeesun, of course, you know from the wonderful translations that she brings us for the analyst desk and of course the interviews. And then there's Khesun. He's one of our observers that sits alongside Jonah Strong, who we mentioned quite a lot on the broadcast. And he is also responsible for some of the Pog votes as well. So if you see in that observer column some very weird and wonderful votes, make sure that you understand that it's Khesun that's responsible for these ones. Both of them are going to be taking us through some of the more weird and wonderful picks that have been coming to the LCK and letting you know whether they work in the real world. So this episode is going to be really fun. Make sure that you drop a subscribe. Put a comment to see what you want to have featured on the Pog State or the Pog Lab, or what you want to get into the Pog Moment for the Valdanalist to break down. Let us know. If you're listening to the audio version, we're going to make sure that we explain everything to the best of our ability, so that you're not going to feel left out, not being able to actually observe what's going on. So, without further ado, let's get into episode 2 of the Pog State for season 2. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pog Moment. This is a new segment where the Valdanalist will take you through the best things that have happened in the LCK for the 2 weeks prior to this episode of the Pog State. Valdes, my friend, welcome back to the Pog State. You're on a few episodes last year. Are you looking forward to being a more regular member this time around?
Yeah, for sure. I like our new format. I like the new shows we got going. And this is going to be fun. This is something I always wanted to do in the past. And, kind of deeply highlight some of the more interesting moments of the LCK games that we did have. So this is the perfect place, right? Here on the Pog State.
Absolutely. And look, we don't have an analyst desk at this point in time, right? So, on the Korean broadcast, they get all of this time to do all their breaking down of the cool plays. And you get 5 minutes on a Friday whenever you get to be the Valdanalist in order to actually, get in there and break down some sort of replay that happens. It's not enough time to get Valdanalist's true views. So, you've got a few clips prepared for us from some of our previous matches. Yeah. I know there's a lot of hype about Chovy, but it's not going to be all about him. And there have been some really huge plays that have occurred here in the LCK. So what's our first one?
There have. First one, okay, so you were talking about Chovy, but we're not going to get to Chovy yet. Chovy will be a little bit later. Chovy up against Gen.G, of course. And our first play, though, is going to be from Fredit Brian versus Damwon Kia, game number 2 at 32 minutes and 42 seconds. So we have a clip here, and let's just go through the clip first. This is at the end of game 2, and we just have this immaculate team fight from Fredit Brian. And if you are watching this game and you flip the team names, you would believe, this looks like Damwon just crushing Fredit Brian easily, right? But we were playing on opposite day when we watched these two play the last time around, and Fredit Brian did take the 2-0. And the team fight was just such a Pog moment for more than just the mechanics of it, It was an incredible team fight, right? It's the Ornhorn into the perfect flank from Delight, Hoya, and Delight coming together for one of the best engages we've seen yet in 2021. But it's also such a big Pog moment because they're doing it to Damwon Kia, the team that we were saying was one of the best teams, if not the best team, in the LCK for 2021. And they made it look so clean, and, the meaning behind it as well. The fact that they are just coming in here and making this day opposite day and proving that in 2021 LCK, pretty much any team can beat any team, right? Bro was on the bottom, Damwon was on the top. and then this happened, you know? So really shaking things up, and that made it such a huge Pog moment for me.
And I love, like, you talk about, you know, why this shouldn't have happened, right? And it's because it's Fred Brion versus Darmon. You can look at these drafts and be like, oh, that's a little bit dicey. I'm not sure what Darmon was thinking there. But if you have a look at the mechanics, which is what you were alluding to before, like, that flank from Delight was absolutely amazing. But that comes into setup, right? That comes into what the team was doing. The timing on the Ornhorn, the Quadra knock-up into Quadra Pulverize immediately afterwards. Like, this is just really, really high-level League of Legends. And it's coming out of the team that should be in 10th place. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's what we thought. And actually, I think at the point of this filming, they are actually in 10th place, even though they did win this game. They have one win, and it's against Damwon Kia, and it's a 2-0. So, you know. You mentioned the drafting, right? Like the Kales in this game, and you're thinking, okay, you know, Kale's level 17. Twitch chat is, you know, they've got the Monka S's out. They're pointing at the clock. Yeah. They're saying, you know, now is Kale time. And Fred and Brion are like, no, you know, none of the narratives, none of the drafting, none of that matters. We're just gonna win. They came out in that day with just such a fierce determination to win that, you know, I think that's really one of the main reasons why they were able to just come out here. They were playing with such freedom, it felt like, you know, a lot of less pressure, because I guess they were going up against Damwon Kia, and their coaches probably told them, you know, just play your game, play how we know that you can play. And it just proves that all the teams in the LCK have fantastic players, and props to Fred and Brion for actually pulling this off and making such a big Pog moment.
It was just amazing, and it just shows that when you got nothing to lose, you're going to be extraordinarily dangerous. All right, what do you got for our second clip, Valdes?
Well, for the second clip, it is it's what you were waiting for. I know you were highlighting Chovy before. You didn't want to seem biased. You didn't want to, you know, get too excited, Atlas.
Not
but
biased,
we do.
I'm just real, you know.
We all subscribe to the Church of Chovy now, don't we? It's yes, kind of inevitable after what Chovy was able to pull off against Gen.G, basically by himself. So the clip that we're going to have is Game 3 of Gen.G versus Homolife Esports, and it's 26 minutes and 53 seconds into the clip. The thing about this clip is that this was after Chovy demolished Gen.G in Game 2 on Yone, and he got 5 solo kills. He single-handedly solo carried on Yone, and then he picked a Kali mid, and everybody was like, there's no way he could do it 2 times in a row. Gen.G, 3-0 at the time of this game. They were undefeated. They looked like the strongest team in the LCK, especially after Fred Brion defeated Damwon Kia. And we were just thinking, okay, Gen.G, that was a bit of a fluke. You're going to come back, right? Well, no. Chovy was able to pull off probably the biggest solo carry Pog moments over the course of these 2 games. I had to pick this, you know, one clip from the 2 games, which is incredibly hard for me.
That's tough. Yeah.
I chose this moment where Chovy, he had done incredible macro plays on the Akali. He comes in here and he basically starts a 1v4, gets a little bit of help from Vista, and it's just like Gen.G have no way to do anything in this game anymore. It's like they've totally given up. There is no win condition. It's just Chovy sweeping the floor and, you know, putting them in the trash. And, you know, it's not that Gen.G are, you know, they're not on that level, right? Chovy just came in here and they stomped one of the best teams in the LCK, and he made it look easy twice in a row. So with this Akali play, he's just showing once again his domination and his confidence in the series with just incredible effective damage onto all 4 members. Rascal just having to kind of run away at the end of that one. And nobody can escape Chovy because you thought he was, you know, hard to get away from on the Yone. He can do the same thing on the Akali, does it here in this game. And, you know, there's a bit of context to this as well, where it's like, okay, in the second game where he carried on Yone, it was a lot of just lane bullying, diving turrets, solo kills, stuff like that. in the Akali game, he had a bit of help from his teammates as well. They were setting up like map kills, but he was always in the right place at the right time, and he always capitalized. He never missed any of the kills, and he just scooped up, I think, 4 of them before this team fight. It was 4 or 5, and again, he was in this unbearable situation for Gen.G where he was 4-0, 5-0, unbelievably fed, and nobody could control the Akali again. And he did it 2 games in a row. And that's kind of why, like, I picked this moment, because I think it was the moment that Gen.G just lost all hope in the series, and they were like, this is over. Like, Chovy boomed us, you know? He literally 1v9'd us, and there's nothing that we can do about it. So just a massive moment for Chovy, where he's really trying to make a statement here in 2021 that you can ban whatever you want. You can ban Yone and Akali. I don't care. I'm still going to defeat you on something. And he's just... I think everybody now is just waiting. They've subscribed to the Church of Chovy. They're waiting to watch his next game. So much excitement around this one player, and the fact that he's trying to bring back solo carrying into the LCK.
And solo carrying from the mid lane as well on an assassin is just ridiculous. If you have a look, like, I want to add to the reverence here just a little bit with just some observation of the drafts, right? Like, you've got so much extra range coming out of Gen.G. They've got the Talia that up until this point was undefeated and hasn't been defeated since, right? This is the one loss that Talia has suffered in the LCK. She is just so oppressive. You look over the other side, Humble Life have this weird odd one out Olaf type composition. They have, a bit of a 1-3-1 type style, but it is a little bit more difficult because they're so short range, right? How are you ever supposed to siege a turret or anything like that? Like, having this like mega carry performance out of Chovy was basically the win condition for this composition, right? Like, it was like that's how this comp is like going to be ran at the end, because otherwise, like, the war of attrition should be won by the team that has the extra range, has the extra poke, has the extra ability, to siege and follow up with all their hard CC. That's not the case. Humble Life, they were backed into this Chovy corner, but they felt very, very safe while they were there. And they did, like you say, set up for him, but it was Chovy that pulled the trigger. And this exact moment was him just taking the bull by the horns. He was 2 levels ahead of BDD at this particular time of the play. Yeah. Like, they'd built this Akali into the juggernaut that he was, because that's how this composition wins the game.
Yeah, and if I'm Humble Life, like, you always kind of have that Chovy win condition now. But keep in mind that in this game, they also had Vayne, right?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right about, like, the win condition and their ability to not siege, essentially. But we've seen this a couple of times now from Humble Life, where it's like, you've got Chovy and Deft, and when they first came into 2021, it was like, yeah, they're good players, but they're not, like, solo carrying. Now it's just like, okay, who's going to carry tonight? Is it Chovy or is it Deft, or is it both? Are they both going to pop off? And now, like, Arthur's playing great. We saw in their most recent game. It's like, wow, this team actually could be the next big thing. So tons of excitement around Humble Life Esports right now, and I think they're gaining a lot of fans based on what Chovy and friends have been able to pull off.
I think Arthur's also getting a lot of fans as well. I'm, talking about him playing Olaf in this game, but in games after this, it wasn't really about, the Chovy carry. Like, his Pantheon performance was fantastic. So we're making superstars over at Humble Life and looking forward to seeing what he can do. This is, just to put into context, ladies and gentlemen, the eve of Humble Life versus Damwon Kia. So we'll just have to see what's going to happen in that particular match.
Isn't that tonight?
And, I mean, it's the eve as in this is the recording that we're doing before that recording.
True.
That's what I sort of meant.
True.
Because days are very confusing when it comes to esports. So I was just going to leave that up in the air. We'll discuss that at the end, though. You have one more clip for us.
I do. One more clip. It's going to be the telecom war. This was KT versus T1, of course. And it's game 3. Now, the fact that KT brought it to a game 3 was impressive.
I was surprised just that they were entering the rift in this particular game, yes.
Absolutely. They forced a game 3, and it's about 32 minutes and 20 seconds in. So it's right where this team fight breaks out at the Baron, and T1, they are trying to force a fight here. And this team fight is one where we really need to break down all the mechanics. The other ones had, like, a lot of backstory, a lot of interesting, tidbits about the players and what they're doing and stuff like that. But this one is really about the mechanics of it all and how KT were just barely able to eke out a win. As you're seeing here, it's a 3-man sleep over the wall, and it's looking like it should just be Kana coming over, sweeping, pressing a Q, and that's going to be the end of the fight, right? But what happens is that everybody's spamming their buttons. Doran's able to knock up the Renekton, they burst him down, and then they're able to come back over the wall with the Samira flashing on in and dashing on in and just cleaning up everybody on the side of T1. But there's a lot of little things, right? Like you see the poke damage that happens to the Vayne on the left side that kind of zones Gumayusi away. He catches a spear, a boulder, and a gold card, so he has to even cleanse roll away from the wild cards that are coming out as well. So it's like, you don't have that Vayne damage, and she's low range. She can't actually attack over this wall. But even so, T1 were so confident that they had the ability to hop over the wall and make the play happen. But Doran pops off with the huge ultimate. Yukao was basically pristine in this game number 3. His stopwatch timings especially were perfect in many different fights, not just this one. And he got so much effective damage in a game that it just didn't seem like KT were supposed to win, but they finally made it happen.
Yeah, just so many little things in this particular engagement. And there was one point that Wolf brought up in the cast as well, which was, if you're T1, you take this fight every time. They have vision of the area. You can see control ward in the brush, control ward over the wall. And the Renekton sees this opportunity to go in on 4 slept targets. Like, this wasn't like a poor decision by T1 in any way. No. This was just 100% outplay. Huge kudos to Doran as well. And then a great example of Samira's extension of CC as well, being able to hold up the Renekton for that little bit of extra time in order to guarantee that kill, eliminate the front line, and then Hybrid can pop off. Like, everything about what KT's team comp is capable of had to be used in this moment, and it wasn't a mistake for T1 to take the fight, which is just huge for KT. Yeah.
And it was, we saw the moment where Fred Brion went absolutely nuts in their team house after they 2-0 down one Kia. KT had a moment like that as well after they defeated T1 in this series, and I think it also came down to just how close this one fight was. So there was just so much on the line. This game was on a knife's edge in the most literal sense. So many low health bars on the side of KT. It should have just been the easiest cleanup from T1, but they didn't have all their damage. I mentioned Gumayusi. There was a stun, it looks like, onto the Yone. Closer had already used his ultimate, so he couldn't get over the wall. And it seems like it just wasn't meant to be. KT presses all their buttons in exactly the right way. They get the stuns down onto the front line and denies all the damage, essentially. Like, barely any more damage comes out, just a bit more onto Doran. But that's it. Everybody else stays at the same amount of health. And KT turn the most important team fight. They end up, after this team fight, they push and win. And that was it.
Yeah.
Because of the way that this one went.
Just amazing. And also, like, the trust fall, right? Yukal, you saw, went down extraordinarily low. He was going forward like he was at full health the entire team fight. Yeah. Like, it didn't actually matter. He was just searching for them gold cards, making sure that he was lining up his wild card damage, which was actually obscene at that point in time. He was very, very strong on the Twisted Fate. But this is the new look KT. This is, the sort of extension from this, right, is that now we've got a team that was middle of the pack. They were 5th place during 2020, almost the entire way through, didn't move up or down almost at all. But now this is a KT that's showing that if you're one of our, expected top teams, you have to watch out. You have to be really careful because Doran and Yukal, they're coming for you.
Yeah.
And they're real scary right now. It's just like the closeness of the LCK that you've illustrated with these Pog moments is what's really... I'm not getting excited, of course, because KT was involved in this clip, but I am quite whelmed, very whelmed.
Just a bit whelmed.
Yeah, not overwhelmed because I can handle it, but I'm well and truly whelmed.
Not too excited by any means, and we talked about the pieces of Doran and Yukal. Those two guys are popping off, but Blank day by day.
Oh, yeah.
Showing
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
We saw him, I think, just yesterday, popping off in the jungle. And Hybrid, if he can kind of get a little bit cleaner, had a bit of a rough series, actually, in this series, but he eventually was able to turn it on in the last team fight, and I suppose that's all that matters. That
You got to get the W, man.
he got the win in the end, and he got the winning team fight with the help from his friends. So that.
And
was,
we also know what he's
matters.
capable of from last year, right? Like,
Yeah.
we know that he's not the 10th place on damage type player because he was first place on damage on a team that was far worse than this in Solo One Prince last year. That was we did have some very weird and wonderful games. I believe it was like that strange Alawi game where Hybrid and Ixu did about 1 billion damage in one game in like 30 minutes, which was very, very strange. Certainly skewed the stats. But I mean, that doesn't matter. We know that, Hybrid's capable of great things, so I don't think we need to be too worried about that bottom lane. And I think KT are a team that are really starting to pull themselves together.
Yeah, and a massive Pog moment here as they turn the tides and they put T1 down to 1-3 after this loss. And this was one of the games that T1 were supposed to win, supposed to just be, okay, KT are pretty good, but we're better. And it did raise some questions about where T1 were as a team. And we saw yesterday that, it's not all sunshines and rainbows over there in T1 land right now. Things are pretty messy as they're doing, it feels like a lot of experimentation more than anything else. With their roster, with their drafts, with everything in the spring season. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, the spring season is exactly when you should be doing that. So I don't think anyone should really be worried. But that will have to do us for the Pog moment. Thank you so much, Valdes, for joining us on the Pog State. And we'll see you in a few weeks' time for the next installment. I'm sure that the LCK will be able to provide us with many, many Pog moments. It's going to be very difficult for you to make that decision. But, ladies and gentlemen, go grab yourself a coffee, something like that. Spend some time away from the computer. We do have a very exciting segment coming up if you're on the audio version, or, of course, if you're watching the video as well. If you're watching the audio version, though, make sure you go take some time, maybe watch those clips back, and get a feel for exactly what we were talking about. But coming up next will be the debut of the Pog Lab. This is the Pog Lab. This is where you come to discover whether things used in the LCK are going to work in real life, aka solo queue. And thankfully, I have two experts with me. I have Jeesun, as you know and love. She translates all of our interviews. She translates all of our analyst desks, and she's just a damn good player in her own right. And now I get to introduce a new face to the Pog State. This is Khesun. You've heard of him before, actually, because we've gotten angry about some of the Pog votes in the past, and he is directly responsible. So my first question to you, Khesun, do you have anything to say to defend yourself after some of those weird votes, especially last year?
My votes were all perfect. I picked the best player that I believe that did mostly impact the game.
And I have another question. Does Jonah Strong ever heavily influence your Pog voting?
No comment.
Oh, perfect. And Jeesun, welcome to the Pog State. You've been on this show a couple of times before, but it's great to have you back for season 2. How you been doing?
It's been good. I think I'm really excited for the new season of the LCK and also the new Pog State. I'm really excited to be part of this Pog Lab. Yay.
Hell yeah. I'm so excited. I'm very excited. I'm glad that I get to bring in players better than myself to demonstrate these LCK strategies to a very high level. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this show, because I'm sure everyone is very, very interested to know what you have prepared for us. And you've entered the lab. You've managed to concoct this new bottom lane duo for us that was debuted in the LCK. Can you tell us a bit about it?
We're doing the bot duo comp from Gen.G. They played Kalista Jarvan, where Jarvan was played as the support with Airy, with lots of poke and really hard engages, and also very safe engages with Kalista and Zhonya's rush. So
yeah, we saw this, didn't we, a while ago. I don't know whether it was played with Kalista, but Spirit was spamming support Jarvan.
With Airy, right?
With Airy a couple of years ago.
Right.
And now Life comes back with it and has his hard carry performance. So who's going to be demonstrating the Jarvan? Who's going to be demonstrating the Callista?
I'll be the Jarvan.
I'm Mrs. Callista.
All right, Mrs. Callista. We've stayed gender coordinated, I guess. Not that that isn't relevant one iota.
Callista.
It's just that, Khesun, I know that you're a Z main, so you like going in. And I imagine that that's going to help with the playstyle. All right, do you guys want to take us through our first clip?
So the first clip will be how J4 can put so much damage during the laning phase. So we kind of made a clip of us during the laning phase, just J4 just landing those pesky flags onto the opponent. So let's take a look.
Right, so the J4 flag, it's like really fast, so you can't really dodge it. And it's very spammable because I didn't really run into mana problems with the support item that gives AP and mana regen instead of the Targon's one. So you can keep spamming it, and you do run out of mana at the first, like before the first recall. But with runes, I did take Biscuit, and that would be enough mana to just keep using it over and over again. Against the Lulu, there was like some fun moments where she tried to shield, and it was just way too fast for her to shield, or she'd shield early and I could just wait it out.
Oh,
so
no.
it definitely feels like Jarvan has poke prio in most lanes.
It was also really impressive to see that there was this one game where we played against Misfortune and Xerath. So those are like the classic poke comp coming down to the bottom lane, but we actually was able to outpoke the opponent, so that was also really funny.
You outpoked a Xerath lane with Jarvan. That happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently Jarvan's E is harder to dodge than Xerath's poke, so it kind of works out.
I mean, I guess that sort of makes sense. Takes a little while for good old Xerath to charge up that Q, the good old Arcano Pulse. Not that I've had to talk about Xerath for an extraordinarily long time. Thank goodness. Do you think that it's about the E damage, or do you think it's area abuse? Is this comp reliant on having that area, Jeesun?
I say it's a bit of both. Like the E, you're only using your E in lane, so the airy, and you also take Scorch, which bumps up the poke a little bit more too. And it's definitely like a bit of both. So like standalone E damage is still pretty good too, because you're maxing it first, and it's still high magic damage, but it still bumps up it a bit with the runes.
Now, I don't know what the next couple of clips are, but do we have an example of transitioning towards a mid game and a late game, and what you're going to be doing in those situations? Because I could imagine that Jarvan poke is going to run into some issues later in the game.
In the laning phase also, as you're poking with your E, you do get weak, very weak into ganks. Like if they gank you, there's a big problem where you're using your dash and your CC ability, because that's tied into your poke. So we met problems while we were poking.
Because we have so much pressure and priority during the laning phase, we were able to get some lane kills, and also we were able to get the Scuttle Crab, which was super cool because we always shove in the wave and we were able to rotate to the river. But at the same time, because J4 is like spamming the flags and for the poke damage there, once the opponents come for a gank, actually he has no tool to slide out, so we usually get caught whenever like Nunu or Pantheon, some of the strong engaged champs for a gank, comes for a gank.
Okay, so it does rely on having some jungle control and making sure that you're aware of where things are happening in the lane. That does make sense.
So one game they had Pantheon as an opponent jungle, so it was really hard to deal with it because we were like abusing Lulu and Ashe, but at the same time they were keep calling Pantheon for a gank, so there was actually no way for us to run away from Pantheon coming down with his stuns, his ults, so it was a little bit risky at that point.
Does it get a lot easier once you hit that level 6 and get that Fate's Call ultimate in order to keep the Jarvan safe?
Kind of.
It's a bit better where Jarvan can just ult the enemies and then run away with the Fate's Call. But even then, as you're still using your EQ combo, a big part of it as poke, sometimes you're out of one of the tools to escape, which makes it a bit harder to run away from the ganks.
So that clip was exactly the one that we were saying. So J4 was able to like use ult, and then Callista used the Faith Call again, I mean, as a follow-up, but still we both died because the damage output coming out from Pantheon and Ashe Lulu was also really huge. So yeah, we tried our best using all the buttons we got, but we still could not escape the gank.
I appreciate spamming all your buttons. I think that's definitely the best thing to do. And also, I mean, where was your jungler? You're in a 3v2 situation. Obviously, the jungler's fault.
Jungle diff.
In that case. Yep, I think it's truly just an example of jungle diff. What's in the final clip? What do you have for us before we discuss the differences between solo queue and LCK?
So we tried to do the J4 ult and Kalista ult and also stopwatch combo. But because that was our first day playing this duo, we had some frustration finding the best timing for Kalista ult because like there was this moment when I like ulted when he went golden, so he was like stuck in the middle.
Oh no.
So we were like keep talking about like we should be more precise using our stopwatch and ult because like that's more efficient if we can like if J4 can stay alive for a moment with his stopwatch and then I can get him back with my ultimate.
And so the idea is to sort of cataclysm and then stay there in stasis with the stopwatch and sort of continue to have that pressure and then hold on to the possibility of the Fate's Call. Is that how it sort of works?
I think so. I think a lot of part of it was we noticed that even in stopwatch you can use Fate's Call.
Yeah, we saw that yesterday actually with the Nico Kalista combo.
Right.
Nico
So we
kept getting pulled back when she was golden.
So in the first game we used it at like the exact same moment where it was both a bit wasted.
Yeah.
Well, one of them was wasted, so we'd rather like try and make sure we know which one we're going to use first. Like if we're going to use the stopwatch first or use the Fate's Call first, just to give a bit more options.
And so you'd say that the lane is difficult coordination wise. You know, you need to trust fall, have an agreement. It's like, oh, he's going to press his stopwatch button. So I know that when I pull him out, it's going to be okay.
Queue, not solo queue. If you're playing with some random support or random AD carry, it's really hard to find the best timing unless like you find the perfect teamwork with each other. So I highly recommend this to play with your own friend or someone you know instead of playing with some random solo queue guy.
And also a friend that you trust at the same time. It's not the same just to find that guy that you know that's high elo or something like that. It's not going to work. It's not going to be good enough. You need to have someone that you trust and know very, very well. So I guess we need to get to the conclusions that we have. Is this, if you do have that friend that you can trust fall with, is this a lane duo that you think is suitable for solo queue?
Definitely, because you can like harass the lane, which is really important for solo queue. But you get ganked a lot, so if you have that much of a map awareness, I think it's really good for solo queue.
Jeesun?
Yeah, I definitely say it's fine. Like you have a strong laning phase, your team fights are pretty good too. You can definitely snowball. You have really good dives too with Kalista ult and Jarvan. So I'd say it's definitely a good solo queue comp.
And good for aggression. Okay, were there any noticeable differences between what you were experiencing and what you saw from Ruler and Life, and how Life may have avoided these jungle gank situations and things like that? Was it all about, Clid having control in the jungle, or was it to do with how they actually carried out the laning phase?
So I really wanted to follow the exact same itemization and build from Ruler. So I looked up on the the match history sites and I saw what item he purchased at what minute of the game. Wow. I actually failed to buy the blue trinket because Ruler was just so fast hitting that level 9. But I was still like level 6 or 7, 8.
I think we'll forgive you for that one, Jeesun. I think that's absolutely fine. I mean, Ruler is one of the best in the world, so we're gonna let you off the hook for not hitting level 9 in time. And also, Ruler's playing with Life, who leaves the lane constantly. And I imagine Khesun was being annoying and just putting flags down in the lane.
I know,
when he could have been killing the mid laner and the top laner and getting Rift Herald and all this sort of stuff like Life does.
I was busy with flags.
Yeah,
too much poke to do.
You needed to claim the land. That's the thing. It's sort of like it's the moon, You're there and you're like, the thing won't stay in the ground. We need to make sure this is ours. Completely understand. Is there any sort of closing thoughts you have on this particular bot duo?
I think you should definitely try it out. It's super fun.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so easy to pull off, but still it's so strong. So it's really good for solo queue, for sure.
All right, this is something that I definitely need to get into. I've got the old man hands, but I know both Callista and Jarvan because they've been around for a while. So I imagine muscle memory.
But you gotta keep in mind that J4 is super squishy with that build, especially with Sonya's and also the AP items. So moving on to the later stage of the game, you have to keep in mind that you actually like get popped once you get flag and drag. So you need better kind of teamwork with Callista moving on to the late game.
So the idea is to sort of make sure you're flanking, you're not actually frontline Jarvan like you'd see from a tank Jarvan normally coming out of the jungle.
And always
or
keep your
like
Callista nearby so she can pull you out.
Right,
Yep.
It's like you want to play as a sub engage instead of your main engage. And sometimes I felt like just flagging was better too. You're giving like AoE attack speed, you have your Moonstone going for you, healing your teammates, shielding with Aerie too. Maybe that's just more useful than just running in and dying.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it sounds super exciting, and I'm very looking forward to the next episode of the Pog Lab where we're going to find out even more fun information about how this is going. Speaking of the next episodes, do you guys have like a formula that you run or something like that, or is this just about like the newest, most exciting combos that you see, and will it just be bottom lane, or are we going to go all around the map?
Well, we're just trying to play the most entertaining ones, the most attractive ones. So when viewers are watching the matches, they might think that, can I really try it like on my solo queue, or is this just for the competitive game? So we want to kind of give the answer to those kind of questions, because people don't really want to play like Renekton versus Shyvana every day, you know? They want something entertaining that they can try. So we want to give answers for those questions.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to the next one. Thank you so much for being on the Pog State. And ladies and gentlemen, this was the Pog Lab. And that's all for this episode of the And that's all for this episode of the Pog State. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, if you're on YouTube, give us a subscribe, like it, give us a comment, leave exactly what you want to see on the Pog Lab next time around, and give us a review. We want to get some sponsors involved, you know, maybe Doritos, triangle logo, triangle themed Doritos. Synergy works out very, very well. And next week on the Pog State, we've got some really cool stuff coming up. Wolf is going to be joining us. He's going to be going over some of the Korean memes that have been circulating about the LCK. And we've got Chronicler on the show from quarantine reading poetry. That's no lie. It's going to be a very exciting episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next time for more Pog State.